All right, good afternoon, everybody. Let's get started here. I'm really grateful that you're all here with me, those who joined the call today. I really think you're going to get a lot out of this today. I've really planned a lot of great information, great material for you, and I do hope that you're somewhere warm. I know we're kind of locked into the house with the snow, at least if you're in Georgia. I don't know how many of you are on the call that are not in the area here, but still, I hope you're somewhere warm and safe and comfortable. Now, we have some folks who are on a call with us. Some of you guys are on a computer, it looks like, and you've got a camera available. There is going to be some interaction here, so please bear with me. I think we're going to have a bit of a conflict towards the end because I've got a few things for you guys to interact with, and I want to make sure everyone has an equal opportunity. So we'll go on the fly with this. We'll sort of sort that out as we go. So I'm glad you're here. I want to start by sharing my personal goals, some of my professional goals too, to help inspire you guys. But for a while now, I've really felt like leadership is something that I've been missing in my life. It's something that I feel like I've really had to step up into and to take more action with personally. And I've really felt like this year particularly, there's been a calling, and at least something that's been sticking out for me has been servant leadership, that idea of servant leadership. Because for a long time in my life, I was very selfish. My life was always about me, and I felt like that was a very hard habit to break. So I want to share that with you guys, just share a little bit about my heart on that now. Really, I'm putting this together for you guys. You know, I want to make sure that there's great value from this and that you feel like this 30 minutes that we spend together is of great value and you're glad that you spent that time with us. So I just want to tell you guys, I started out working with the John Maxwell team in October because of this calling, because I feel a need to lead and coach and be in a leadership position more. And it's been awesome. It's been such a blessing. So a lot of the material that we're going to be going over today is from the John Maxwell team, is from John Maxwell's books, if you're familiar with some of his books, and we'll go over that together. I also want to share with you some of my personal goals. You know, some of you may be aware already that I've been working towards a physique competition that I'm going to be competing in October of 2017. And if you'd like to follow me, I've got a YouTube page there. I'm updating videos on that. And I just want to encourage and inspire other people with similar goals too, and share knowledge and wisdom as well. And I want to let you guys know, I really feel like I'm just like you. I'm on a learning journey for myself as well. And I see myself more as a curator of wisdom. You know, someone who's done a lot of research and reading and in a lot of different areas. And I wanted to compile all what I think is the very best stuff and share that with you because I want to be able to bless your life too, just the way that information has blessed mine. So like I said, I want this next 30 minutes we spend together for you to feel like that was really worth it and you were glad you came. So let me summarize what we're planning on doing today, and hopefully we'll cover everything in the 30 minutes and not more than that. So I want to touch on the topic of leadership and explain more about what it is. You know, we really need to understand that before we can kind of dive into anything else. But today I want to introduce 3 key laws that must be obeyed in order for anyone to become a better leader. And I'm going to discuss briefly and give you an opportunity to join what we call a mastermind group. And it's something I'm going to host. It's going to start this Wednesday, and I'll go over the details in a minute. But we're going to explore more in depth today's material so that it can bless and help you in your life and with your goals. Also, by the end of the webinar, I'll be offering you guys a chance to win 2 different prizes. So already, you're getting a chance to win something today. Isn't that great? So some of you will already have goals set for the new year, and some of you may not have goals. Some of you maybe have already experienced setbacks in the goals that you've set for yourself, and I just want you to know that's okay. Whatever it is, don't worry about it. This is going to help you with the foundation for those goals. So the fact that you're here on this call even today speaks volume for your intent and desire to be better. And that's really an excellent start. So I just want to encourage you that way. What I'm going to show you today is that when it comes to achieving your goals, no matter what they are, leadership is what matters. You first got to be a leader of yourself, and this will set the stage for your level of achievement. In fact, if you think about it, strong leadership has and probably always has been the heart of every sizable achievement known to man. And that's because, the reason for that is because everything rises and falls with leadership. Now, contrary to popular belief, leadership is absolutely a teachable skill. Leadership is predictable. Leadership operates by laws. So learn the laws and you'll learn to lead. But if you ignore the laws, then you're always going to struggle with leadership. And it's always going to be a source of frustration. the core leadership philosophy that I'm going to talk about today. The key concepts come from John Maxwell's international best-selling book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. So this is a book that's been translated into 47 different languages around the world, sold millions of copies, and has become a major leadership resource for many organizations. Now, John has written about 60 books, sold around 20 million of them, and he's consistently been voted year on year the world's #1 leadership guru. So he's produced a string of best-selling books on leadership, but the 21 Laws is probably his most popular book, and it's one of my personal favorites. So that's why we're going into that one today to start with. I think one of the reasons it's been so popular, it's been and it continues to be very successful, is because the information is very accessible. It's not some intellectual thesis on leadership. It's very simple, practical steps, easy to understand, easy to implement, and can make a huge difference in your life right away to your results. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to cover all of the 21 laws in such a short space of time. We're going to look at just 3 of them today. But for those of you who want to know more, you have an opportunity today to reserve your spot in the next mastermind group that I'll be hosting. This is a 10-week class sponsored by Exodus Health Center, so there's no charge to you to join, which is awesome. And this is an opportunity for us to dive into all 21 laws of leadership and apply them personally to our lives. So since this is more interactive, I have to limit the group size to just 10 people. That way we can be more accountable to one another, and it's more of a social environment. The only requirement I have to join, or for you to join this group, is that you commit yourself to being available for the whole 10 weeks, as the material is going to build on itself and the group benefits by everyone being present. So stay tuned by the end of this call for your chance to join, as you guys will have priority. The people who are on this call today are going to have priority. I've already had some folks who've reached out to me to reserve a spot, but I said you've got to be on this call because I'm prioritizing those people. And really the reason for that is because I know that you on this call here today means it's a first step, really. You're taking the action steps to want to make changes in your life, and you're showing commitment, a higher commitment level. And I know that y'all are probably going to be more likely to stick with the program. So, so we'll get into more of that in just a moment. So what is leadership then? Well, leadership encompasses far more than most people initially think. You know, it starts with leadership of the self, so of your own person, then leadership of others, then leadership of leaders and of businesses, and at the highest level, of enterprise level leadership or country level leadership, like our president. Leadership is the process, though, of turning potential into results by way of systematic organization of talents. So we're all born with different God-given talents, right? But that's not enough. Talent does not equal results. Otherwise, all successful people would be talented, and they're not. And all unsuccessful people would be untalented, and that's just not true either. And you know probably from your own personal observations that this just isn't true. I mean, do you know any talented people who don't seem to get the results they deserve? Of course you do. You probably know dozens. Do you know any successful people who seem to lack talent? Again, they're everywhere, aren't they? So talent will help, sure, it'll help, but that's not enough on its own. Something else is needed, and that catalyst necessary to turn your potential into results is leadership. So one of John's books, called Talent is Never Enough, says this. This is quoted right from the book. It says, more than 50% of all CEOs of Fortune 500 companies had C or C- averages in college. Wow, isn't that crazy? 65% of all US senators came from the bottom half of their school classes. 75% of US presidents were in the lower half club in school, and more than 50% of millionaire entrepreneurs never finished college. So as you can see, some of our beliefs around why people are successful need to be re-examined. There has to be more than just talent. Talent is given, but we must earn our success. So I know I've said we're going to take a look at just the 3 laws, and you can see the slide right here. We're going to look at the law of the lid, the law of influence, and the law of process. So I want to say this too. If you feel at any point in time during this call that the information is great, I hope you have a pad and pen and you're taking notes. I will have this available for later on. I'm recording it right now, so if you want to view it at your pleasure later or your leisure later. So if you're on a call, say, and you can't write or take notes, don't worry about it. I'll make sure you get a copy later. So let me give you a summary of what these 3 are. Okay, so starting with the first one, how well you lead determines how successful you're going to be. That's the law of the lid. Leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. That's the law of influence. And leadership develops day by day, not in a day. That's the law of process. So I've chosen these three because when we realize that we'll only be as successful as our ability to lead, that leadership is influence. And our influence with people, and therefore our ability to lead, develops through a process that evolves day by day. When we see this, it gives us something to immediately set to work on. And the process of developing our ability to influence too. Okay, so first of all, let's look at the law of the lid in a little more detail. How well you lead, how successful you are. Simple as that. How well you lead determines how successful you're going to be. So look at it this way. If you take your left hand, so do this with me right now. If you can, of course, if you're driving, please don't take your left hand off the steering wheel. But if you take your left hand and hold it as if you're holding a cup, in fact, if you've got a cup of water in front of you or coffee or something, just pick that up right now. This is your business, okay? Now, if you take your right hand and cover over the top of your left hand like a lid, this is your leadership. So if this cup is filled with liquid, that liquid inside the cup is your results. So your results can rise to reach the lid of your leadership, but they will never rise any higher. In other words, whatever my leadership skills and abilities are in this moment, that's the lid on my business potential. So your leadership lid in this context is your ability to cast vision for the business. So if we're talking about business principles here, it's to cast vision. It's to get a team of like-minded individuals together, to unite those people in a common purpose behind that vision, to help them all see how their own goals are in alignment with the team's goals, to get the right people on the bus. Quote from Jim Collins here, a book called Good to Great. If you haven't heard of that book, it's a great one. So getting the right people on the bus, getting the wrong people off the bus, to get the right people in the right seats on the bus, then get the bus going in the right direction. You see, it's easy to see how leadership ability will limit the potential of a business, isn't it? The problem of neglect of leadership in most organizations is a systemic problem that self-perpetuates. Think of how most people get leadership positions. They're not selected for their leadership ability, are they? They're often chosen for their technical ability in a certain area. So the best accountant in the team, they become the team leader. Now, that seems to make sense until you realize that leadership is a totally different skill set. Then it's easy to see what really happens. You lose a good technician and gain a bad manager. Now, the company, the new leader, and the team, they're all unhappy. The law of the lid is never more evident than in this scenario because the lack of leadership ability is a serious limit to the productivity of that team. And this is so common, it really is. We see this all over and over again. So how many of you guys know what I'm talking about here? I mean, how many of you guys have ever had a bad boss in the past? How many of you guys are sitting next to one right now? I mean, I hope not, unless they're your spouse. But in this case, the team could be a talented group of people, but their achievements will not rise beyond the leadership lid of the leader. So here's what doesn't happen, is ability, the business ability doesn't rise beyond leadership ability. It just doesn't happen. It's not going to happen to me, and it's not going to happen for you. Now, it's important to know the difference between leadership lid and limited potential. We don't want to mix up the two. You know, our leadership lid definitely limits our effectiveness as a leader, or effectiveness in whatever goals that we want to achieve. But we have all the potential already we're ever going to need. In fact, we have more potential than we're ever going to use in this lifetime. So I want to share with you guys an example that someone shared with me years ago, and I found it really useful to understand our potential for greatness. So one of my mentors shows me this box, and he built this box with a light bulb in it, and he turned it on, and he said, "Do you see this light?" And it wasn't particularly bright, not dim either, but he said, "That light is the expression of your potential." And in the context that he was speaking about, he meant health, but I could see how this example applies to even more than that. You know, he began to dim the light slowly, and it got to a point where it looked like it wasn't even there anymore. I mean, it was just a little flicker, maybe a little spark. And he asked me this, if this is the expression of your potential, how do you think you're functioning right now? And I said, obviously not very well. I mean, I can hardly see the lights even on. Then he cranked it up to full power. And the light got amazingly bright, much brighter than before. And I knew then what he was after. I knew what he was trying to prove. You see, what if all this time I was operating as a regular or dim bulb? I mean, that would explain a lot, wouldn't it? Hardship, unhappiness, lack of success, discontentment. But then what if I just literally made the decision to crank up or dial things up a notch, or 2 notches, or 6 or 7 notches? What would my results be then? Obviously much better, right? Now, I know we all get different results. And if we were light bulbs, we'd all light up our surroundings to different degrees. But either bright or dim, the source, the power is unlimited. Your potential is always ready to flow through you, just like electricity is to flow through a bulb, a light bulb, like in this analogy. And your results, the limitation is not in the supply. It's not the not the supply, it's not the electricity or your potential, it's in the dimmer switch of the light bulb. And that's what you have control over. So that's the cool part of all this. So the law of influence, getting onto the second law, that's about the law of the lid. The law of the influence is, it says the true measure of leadership is in influence, nothing more and nothing less. So every interaction we have with another human being is an attempt to influence them. In fact, if we look at this example, is a mother an example of a leader? And I know we have a few mothers on the call today. Well, is she attempting to influence her children? Well, yeah. She spends every minute of every day actually influencing them. In fact, this is the hardest job on the planet. I will not even deny that. Watching as my wife takes care of our kids. We've got 3 girls. And with them, everything is a negotiation or trial. And everything is an attempt to influence them. You know, put these socks on, get in the car, don't put your fingers in that. You know, everything that we're doing is about trying to influence them. And leadership is influence. It's as simple as that. Leadership is about influence, and we are all leading, whether we realize it or not, every second of every minute of every day. On social media, in person, however you present yourself, you're a leader, whether you believe it or not. Now, an important aspect to this to understand is that you cannot lead any more people than your ability to influence, because leadership is influence. John Maxwell says here that the one who thinks they're leading but no one is following is only taking a walk. And I'll be the first to tell you guys, I've taken many walks and I'm still walking, I'm still learning myself. But the truth is, the higher you want to climb, the more you need leadership. The greater the impact you want to make, the greater your influence needs to be. If you doubt the importance of leadership, think of what you want to achieve out of your life. What are your key goals or objectives? And then think about who can help you achieve those goals. Think about who or what could get in the way of those goals, and how is it going to affect the other people in your life? Who's going to look after the kids if you spend time working on this? Who is impacted by success or failure of your goal? You know, and as soon as you start to think about everything you do, you realize that in some way other people are instrumental in how you live your life. And to be successful or win at anything, we need to lead. And to lead, we need to influence. So I'll read you a quote from Margaret Thatcher. She said, "Being in power is like being a lady. If you have to tell people you are, then you're not." And that just reminds me of a ton of different comedy sketches on SNL. But if there's low levels of influence, then there are low levels of leadership. Leadership is influence, and influence comes from valuing people. So I heard this quote before too, and this really stuck with me. And they said, people don't care how much you know. So they don't care how much wisdom you have and how much knowledge you have. They don't care about that until they know how much you care. And that's so true. You know, if you take genuine interest in people, if you truly care, then your influence with those people grows the same. You know, I used to think leadership was all about me. Then I shifted and I pretended like it was all about them, but I secretly thought it was all about me. Then years later, I realized it was all about them, and it always has been. It's influence. And that comes from adding value and from really caring. So a famous guy, Zig Ziglar, some of you guys know him, summed it up nicely when he said this. He said, "You can have what you want if you'll help enough other people get what they want." You know, a lot of people don't understand that. A subtle shift in language in our interactions is to ask, simply, just ask this: how can I help you? When the leader's focus shifts from what have you done for me to asking them, what can I do for you? To asking, are you getting all the support from me you need? What support do you need from me? How can I help you grow? As soon as that shift takes place, your influence begins to leap forward. When you ask your children the same thing, what can I do to help? Your influence with them even grows. So thinking about the problems with leadership here. There's so many myths, right? Particularly with influence, and I'm going to look at 5 of the myths of influence, and let's see if you can recognize any of them in your own life, okay? The first one here, management myth. I think people often get management and leadership mixed up. You see, management can be a part of leadership, but just because you can manage something efficiently doesn't mean you can lead. Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. Management is efficiency, control, manage risks. Leadership is direction, enthusiasm, inspiration, influence. People often think they're the same thing, but they're really not. Monitoring what time people come into work or how long they've had for lunch or that sort of thing. It's not the same thing as leading an inspired team united in pursuit of a challenging goal, is it? So that's the management myth. Another myth here is the entrepreneur myth. Simply put, that entrepreneurs make great leaders. But if you stop and think about it, that makes no logical sense whatsoever. Just because someone identified a gap in the market, moved quickly to exploit an opportunity, that's a totally different skill set to leadership, isn't it? They could be brilliant, but that's not what leadership is. You have to care. So what about the knowledge myth? This is a classic. Sorry, hold on a second. I got to pop up here. I got to get rid of this. So information with the knowledge myth, the information is power. And therefore, whoever has the power is a great leader because leadership equals power. But it doesn't. Leadership equals influence. You can't force people to follow you. They have to want to follow you. The next is the pioneer myth. This, again, is a popular fallacy. Just because someone got there first or is out front of the pack, that they are the leader. As I said, once you appreciate that leadership is a separate skill set, then this is easy to see through, isn't it? And finally, my favorite myth here is the position myth. This is the biggest misconception of all, I think, and it's the most dangerous. This is so common, it's scary. So many people think that it's position that makes you a leader. Give me the position, give me the title, give me the credit, give me the corner office, then people will listen to me. But it's not the position that makes the leader, it's the leader that makes the position. If you have the position, it might give you a temporary head start when you first meet new people, but not for long. If you don't have influence, you can't lead, and you just can't be effective. Okay? So last of the 3 we're going to talk about today is the law of process. And the law of process says leadership develops daily, not in a day. Similar to the thought process, Rome was not built in a day. I'm sure many of you guys have heard that before. So leadership is definitely a learned skill. And that's what the John Maxwell team specializes in. We operate in 40 countries around the world teaching John Maxwell's principles of leadership. And it's absolutely a learnable skill. But like all complex skills, it evolves over time. Leadership skills develop day by day. They don't develop in a day. This is true for the development of any skill set. And it's particularly true of leadership. It's a process. It evolves. You don't read one book and become a great leader overnight. You don't attend one training program and become a great leader overnight. It takes time and commitment and certain investment in yourself to develop your leadership skills. But if you make that investment, then guess what? Your leadership skills are going to develop. And anyone that has ever learned to play a musical instrument, for example, or play a sport like golf or tennis, or learn a language, or learn to read or write, if they stop and think about it, they know the law of process. When we stop and think about athletes competing in the Olympics, for example, we see evidence of this firsthand, don't we? But it's easy to misunderstand what we're seeing. When we see a world-class champion athlete doing their thing, the first thing that comes to mind is, are they talented? Aren't they talented? Like, they're great. But often people will make very little acknowledgement of the years of training that goes into the short performance you see on the world stage. Dennis Waitley, who is a former head of psychology for the U.S. Olympic team, said, at the highest level, talent is equal. They're all really talented. That isn't the determining factor. At the highest level, there's something else that separates the winners from the losers. So John says something I really like in one of his books. He says, if I want to be motivated, I attend an event. If I want to grow, I engage in a process. And I just love that. But I think that the thing that really strikes me about that is that a process takes time. You've got to evolve through the process before opportunity appears. And if you wait for the opportunity to start the process, it's gone before you've even begun. We can't wait to develop our leadership skills. We need to start right now. We need to be prepared for the opportunity when it comes. It's an old saying, but it's every bit as true today as it's ever been. Success occurs when preparation meets opportunity. Some of you will have heard the story of a woman who sat in the audience and watched as an expert pianist play at a concert. Afterwards, she went up to her and said, "I'd give anything to play like you do." And the pianist, she looked at her and she said, without question, "No, you wouldn't, or you would have already done it. Sure, you'd give anything except 8 hours practice a day for 20 years. Anything apart from that, if you gave what I've given, then you would play pretty much as well as I do. Maybe a little less, maybe a little better, but pretty much the same." When we see someone who's mastered something through an orderly process of growth, we think, oh, aren't they lucky? Aren't they talented? But talent is part of their mastery. It's not the whole thing. When all is said and done, personal and organizational success comes down to leadership. Because remember, everything rises and falls with leadership. So we're coming to the end of our 30 minutes now, and I just wanted to tell you again about the mastermind group. I wish we had more time to dig into more of these laws, but that's really what this mastermind group is going to be about. So let me just finish up by saying this. Leadership is a learnable skill. Remember that. Some people are more naturally gifted than others, of course, but overall, it's more of a learned skill than a natural talent. Everything really does rise and fall with leadership. Now, as I said at the beginning, for those of you who want to find out more, here's a couple of simple ways you can do that. Change starts with awareness. And to facilitate raising that awareness, you can join me this Wednesday for our next mastermind group. If you're serious about attending for all 10 weeks, barring emergencies, of course, then just write in the text box, "I'm in." Okay? Now, some of you are on the call here and don't have the ability to write in So what I want you to do right now is, if you got a pen and a piece of paper, write down my email address and send me an email there too. It's andrewstbernarddc@gmail.com. Once again, that's Andrew, ANDREW, Saint, ST, Bernard, BERNARD, DC@gmail.com. And just respond to me and let me know you want to be part of this group. The registration, like I said, is open to you guys, particularly right now. I haven't advertised it anywhere else, but don't wait on this, because I'm going to, if there's still spots available, I'm going to be filling that up later on this evening. Okay? So if you liked what you learned today and you want to plug into more of what we've got, and say, for instance, you couldn't get in the mastermind group, or maybe you weren't available on Wednesday nights, we have other opportunities for you. Okay? So this next one, I want to tell you about this briefly. So we just did a 30-minute class here. If you'd like me to come out to your place of business, I can speak on other John Maxwell's materials here. This one here is on the book, Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And this is an excellent resource for overcoming failures when they happen, not if, because everyone experiences failures. But you want to bounce back from your failures. So if you would like to reserve or book a time for me to come out and speak to your work, your employees, email me as well, same email address, and there it is on the screen, andrewstbernarddc@gmail.com. Now, the next event we have is coming up this January the 14th. That's next Saturday. If one of your goals was to lose weight, 21st Century Weight Loss is where you want to do that, and you want to get onto www.exodushealthcenter or exodushc.com, and make sure it's exodushc.com. But register at that event and come out. It's going to be awesome. Now, here's your chance to win. I want you guys, and this is where we had a little bit of trouble here, because I know not everybody has the ability to text here. First 3 people to answer this question and either email me or send it in the text box here. What is the first law that we covered today? What is the first law? Give me that, and we're going to get you a copy of this book here, Hustle, The Power to Change Your Life with Money, Meaning, and Momentum. That's going to be a great book. And then also, for those who can answer this question, when are we having our first mastermind group? Send that in a text message. The first 2 people that respond are going to get a copy of this awesome workout here on DVD. It's a Max T3 DVD series, high-intensity home-based program, and I have that available for you to win as well. So my pleasure talking with you guys today. God bless. I appreciate you guys coming out, and I look forward to starting the mastermind group with you on Wednesday. Take care, and God bless.